So yesterday night, a report went out from the Police Benevolent Association in New York, basically the union for the NYPD. And Patrick Lynch, the president, was saying that at a Shake Shack in New York, they basically tampered with the food of police officers and it made them sick. And all over the internet, without very much criticism at all from the media, everyone was just talking about how these awful Shake Shack employees targeted police officers, the boys in blue, trying to protect us. But I and many others didn't believe it for a second. And lo and behold, just a few hours ago, New York Police Chief Rodney Harrison tweeted out the following. After a thorough investigation by the NYPD's Manhattan South investigators, it has been determined that there was no criminality by Shake Shack's employees. Simply put. So, the media just ran with this last night, assuming that the police officers had no motivation to lie or embellish this story about how they were targeted by big bad service workers. And less than 12 hours later, basically, we have the truth, which is that nothing happened to these police officers at the hands of these workers. And this is a bigger deal than it just being about a few cops that, made up a story about Shake Shack and about the union that reported it uncritically. That's bad, but it's rooted in a wider complex of police victimhood. I know of no other group I can think of that has a bigger victimhood complex than police in the United States. I can't think of any off the top of my head, at least. They fundamentally believe that on the one hand, that they're big, bad, tough guys that can take down the worst people, but simultaneously are, just delicate flowers that the public doesn't respect, and that everyone hates them, no one gives them their dignity, no one treats them right, etc., etc., etc. And this is how you get these sorts of stories. Whenever anything happens to police, or they perceive anything is happening, they will make up these stories. So, Shake Shack is tampering with, their food. Shake Shack is putting bleach in drinks. McDonald's is writing pig on cups. We remember that story. A police officer wrote it there after the fact was caught for basically trying to frame McDonald's workers, saying that they discriminated against police. Turns out he was lying. There was another story where a police officer took a bite out of his McDonald's burger, sandwich, whatever, didn't realize he took the bite, wrapped it up, then came back later, saw the bite, assumed that a worker did it to him as an anti-police act. Turns out he took the bite and forgot after they looked at CCTV coverage from the actual store. So police officers, again, fundamentally see themselves as the thin blue line between order and chaos, and yet they are terrified, or at least want you to think they are terrified of service workers. These are not powerful people. Service workers make minimum wage or slightly above it. They're disproportionately likely to be women and people of color. They are often people disregarded by society. When you look at people that are actually mistreated by the economy, by customers, by their employers, it's service workers, not police officers. And yet cops see them as the victim in relation to some of the workers with the least amount of power in society. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And it's more than just a joke. Certainly this is funny. I had a bit of a chuckle because I thought, of course, I knew last night that Shake Shack workers obviously didn't target police officers by putting, something in their drinks. I knew that. I was guaranteed that didn't happen. And here we are, 8 hours later, maybe 12 hours later. We know that's the truth. So I had a bit of a chuckle. But somebody on social media, at least a couple people did, made the point that, this could have been real dangerous to those Shake Shack workers. If you worked there, whether or not you were on shift, whether or not you would have been the person that supposedly had the means or motives to do this to the police officers, what if a police officer came in there and targeted you? What if somebody who's like a pro-cop New Yorker that wants to defend police officers and their honor went in there and caused harm to those workers? Now, that didn't happen, thankfully, but what if it did? What if it did, especially when nothing happened? Why is the police union, without an investigation, crying to the media about how their officers were targeted by big bad service workers? And why is most of the mainstream media, the big news outlets, why are they going on about how this happened? Why are they just reporting this uncritically? Why did they not sit on the story until the investigation at least had a preliminary finding, as we now have this morning, which is that nothing happened? And it's because the police, despite the fact that they see themselves as victims, have the entire social, political, and economic power structures behind them. And so there's this cognitive dissonance. The biggest victims in the world, yet the rich and wealthy and well-connected protect them more than anyone else. This is a really telling moment. It's just one more example of police officers making up stories to make themselves look like victims, when the fact is, more often than not, they're the ones victimizing poor people, people of color, all sorts of people with disabilities, anyone that's marginalized. And don't let these lies about McDonald's and Shake Shack workers distract you from that crucial fact.